Hey guys, welcome back to Fisher Enclave. This is Captain Obvious, and today we will build a tiered zoo with a cable car tour. This is a tiered zoo design, and the lowest level will be the aquatic animals, which will include not one, not two, but three sea life enclosures. The zoo will also include a scenic walking tour and a cable car tour, which is the main attraction for visitors. You get to see all your favorite animals in the safety of bird's eye view. And in order to pull off the cable car tour, you need to plan the route and direction of your cable cars. On the island with the sea life enclosures, I placed down the insect, amphibian, and reptile house. The tiered zoo idea does not necessarily mean that the lower levels pertain to the bottom of the food chain. Rather, these buildings simply seem to blend together quite nicely. For instance, reptiles and insects could be swamp creatures, which therefore should be in an environment with water. Therefore, I place the structure on the island in the lake. I will be utilizing the new keys as a guide to plopping down the sea life enclosures. Alongside the cable car will be the walking paths, and I need to make sure that the paths are in place so I could measure where to plop the side sea life enclosures. It should be no surprise to anyone that working on any area that involves water is tricky, especially when you have to wait for the water to recede. You will see me repeatedly relocate the enclosure and attempt to create a decent walking path bridge. Since there is a cable car stop which requires a road to attach on, this island needs to connect to the mainland by bridge for the crucial garbage and death care facilities to reach the island. Otherwise, in due time, garbage and the dead will accumulate in the cable car stop and there will be no way to retrieve the said articles. This is the end of the line for the cable car stop, and it is conveniently right in front of the monorail station. Notice that I did not populate this side of the map because I knew that I had to first plan the entrance points to the zoo. I would need space for the cable car stop and the actual zoo side entrance. Then I can finalize the location of the monorail station. At this point, I am doing my best to align the cable car stop as straight as possible, and after which I can do some light detailing, then proceed to establish the actual zoo entrance. Again, thank you for the time-lapse speed feedback from the last episode. So for the most part, majority of the viewers are satisfied with the time-lapse speed. However, there are some concerns that the finer details, such as building choices, are lost or missed during the time lapses. I am truly grateful for that feedback, which also made me realize that I rarely do any close-up final review of what I've just built. So you may now notice that this sequence is slightly a slower time lapse, but you are now able to identify what buildings I've just plopped down. Nevertheless, at some point, I will still showcase in a cinematic format of everything new that I've included in the episode. Bridges over water is quite the predicament. I actually needed to create a sloping terrain for the bridge to smoothly slope from one end to the other. And another dilemma with island builds is how to connect the island buildings with power without having to create power lines or constructing the water advanced wind turbine. Just look at the effort on how I meticulously tried my best to make the bridge slope as smooth as possible. Now check out how many passengers are getting on and off the monorail station, but they seem to be having a difficult time crossing to reach the zoo entrance. I will therefore make a temporary block to enable the pedestrians to cross to the other side much quicker, and I will also get back to connecting that cable car block to encircle the bank of the lake. Now for the other side of the connecting bridge, I appear to have depleted my soil availability reserves. This is actually an opportunity for me to start creating the different zoo levels while obtaining the ever needed soil to smoothen our bridge. Now that is definitely much more like it, The captain would lose sleep if there were any awkward bridges and I didn't make any effort to smoothen it out. This stationary ship from the Sea Life Enclosure is extended close enough to the bank of the lake where we can add a park pier for the power to jump from the mainland to the island without having to create a power connection. From the aquatic level in the lake, we will now proceed with the first inland level, which will be, for the most part, the birds tier. I made certain that I placed the flamingo enclosure as close as possible to the cable car line so we have a better view of the lovely flamingos, while the birdhouse is further away since you cannot really see the small birds from the cable car. The captain encourages the idea to not just make transportation routes for the sake of improving your traffic, but rather take the opportunity to also make the journey as enjoyable and scenic as possible. Place featured structures alongside your routes to have a more aesthetically pleasing experience while traveling. On every new level of our zoo, it is important to provide a gap to decorate with plantation and rocks. We want to minimize the rocky cliffs, and the gaps will also provide ample space for the walking path to smoothly climb the terrain. Just make sure to gradually slither your terrain to the next level and not harshly create a steep slope. Patience is a virtue, especially when you want to design to look a certain way. For the cracked edges, we can simply cover that with vegetation, trees, and rocks. For the next level, I will be utilizing the Giraffe Enclosure. I seem to have experienced some difficulty when placing down the enclosure, which cancels out the rock formations, but eventually I was able to figure out that the game wants the building to be plopped down first before the rocks. Go figure. The giraffes are large animals that can be viewed quite nicely from the cable car line, which is absolutely extraordinary. I rarely use cable cars in my builds, so it was only in this playthrough did I realize that cable car lines cannot go in a 90-degree angle or less. Otherwise, I would have made the cable car line turn along with the sloping walking path and have a much longer journey. Unfortunately, we have to settle for a relatively straight cable car route. On the upper level, we currently have the lion's den and the elephant enclosure. The lions are encased in a cage, which makes it difficult to see from the cable car, unlike the elephant enclosure, which is in an open area that is enclosed by a fence. I suppose lions may be able to climb out of fences considering that they are just large cats, hence why their enclosure is a full cage. And the next largest animal that can be seen by cable car are the rhinos. At this point, I was contemplating on the best solution to have maximum exposure of the rhino enclosure, which should be as close as possible to the other side of the cable car line. And Eureka! That is definitely the best location for the rhino enclosure. And now the next steps would be to create alternate sloping walking paths and to include any other zoo building that we have not utilized. Again, it is imperative that the walking path slopes are gradual rather than steep. The captain prefers less cracking in the terrain as much as possible. However, there are instances where terrain cracks are acceptable, which is part of design, but for the most part, it is best to avoid the cracking of the earth. I will still need some zoo structures behind the elephant enclosure, and unfortunately the bison enclosure will be too distant from the cable car tour to be fully appreciated. And we definitely will not be able to see the apes in the monkey palace, which is a housed facility. Overall, the zoo appears to be a little too close to the avenue, so I will simply remove the road to make way for the cable car stop and the zoo main entrance. This is also why I have not populated this part of the map, because I am uncertain of how large and how much space the zoo will require. As I mentioned in previous episodes on planning in new areas or districts, that I would first establish or construct the main attraction, which in this case is the zoo, then build outwards. I find it that when you create your pretty road networks, then determine that, let's say, this park will be in this area, but then you later realize that the designated area is much too small, or the buildings that you wanted to insert are just far too large. Then you will need to make sacrifices like redo your roads or not be able to use all the structures that you initially intended. You have basically painted yourself to a corner and now you're stuck. Therefore, I started to practice building and laying out my structures and roads from the inside out. And I find that this is the most efficient way to progress my city. Road networks are versatile. They can be grid, they can be organic, and roads can be used to make shapes that can only be limited by your own imagination. For instance, the Palm Islands in Dubai, where the road branches spread out from the middle, is just one road. All the structures on where they are placed are all strategical beyond the road layout. So when you create your new area or district, try to first plan on what structures you want to place in that area. Plan how it will be featured, then create your road network around it. The zoo is finally connected to the main road and is thus connected to power. Along the bank of the lake, I will connect this road to where the other side of the cable cars stop, which is by the monorail station. And when placing down the road, I am doing my best to reduce the amount of cracking of the terrain. And I am also keeping an eye on the zone areas so they are aligned properly in case I decide to zone on that side of the road. And of course, the island in the lake can finally be connected with a bridge. This road is exclusive for the zoo, and we will further enforce that this is zoo property by engulfing the area with a fence. Since there are no other zoo structures that I plan to add, I will therefore start to decorate the area with rocks and trees. We appear to be having sewage issues, and this needs to be remedied immediately. We will therefore halt the construction of our zoo area and add a new sewage facility in the city. It is also about that time that I replace these inland water treatment plants with the advanced and much larger version. I can also reduce the number of recycling centers in this area. Now we are just barely over the yellow section, and if I do not deal with this now, I may be interrupted again during the zoo construction. Let us check the budget tab and see if we can spike up the water expenses, and fortunately we have not gone beyond the 100% budget. And another thing that I have noticed are the significant number of abandoned buildings in the city. This is an absolute first at 65,000 population. Fortunately, we are nearly done with the zoo build, and I suspect that the abandoned buildings are commercial since I have been spamming commercial zones in this episode before zoning residential. When I initially decorated the edges of the lake with rock formations, the rocks on the left appear to look okay, while the rocks on the right feels a little overkill. My heart is not truly set with this design, but for the meantime, I will let it sit for a while until I have a better idea. On day 2 of the zoo build, the captain lost sleep knowing that there is a jank bridge in the city, and I do not have any reasonable excuse on why that is, except for the fact that constructing vanilla bridges on water proves to be a difficult task. But after having ample rest, I realized that the trench bridge technique would still work as long as water is not in the equation. And the solution to making a smooth bridge over water is to remove the water by creating a dam on both sides of the bridge, so you would be able to create a deep trench, then simply connect your roads together to make that smooth, satisfying bridge. It is a tedious task, I am well aware, but it is still very much possible without Move It Mod. I thought of making something different with the cable car pillar, so instead of just having it over water, why not put it on a piece of land? It would not hurt to try it, and it may turn out fine. We will decorate with what vanilla assets are available, such as small rocks, and cover the mound with vegetation. Although I would prefer if we could use the large rocks, but they cannot merge with the pillar, unlike the vegetation. Moving forward, this road bridge is also slightly janked and will require some smoothing. I will apply the same exact strategy with the first bridge, and we should expect similar smooth slope results. Then after, we have quite the assortment of new bridge options from the new Bridges and Piers content creator pack. I tried the various types of new bridges, but none of them have the same appeal as the dirt road bridge with enclosure. The other bridges are either too wide or the pillars are a little too close to each other, while the enclosed bridge feels cozy. I will have to settle for the wooden enclosed bridge, which is what we had in the first place. And the only new improvement is the fact that the slope is as smooth as it can ever be. But now, let us try to place a partial key on the bank of the lake. My idea is to mix keys and cliff rocks as borders, and I am purposely trying to avoid any beachfront looking bank because we do not want to invite guests to explore the water while there are aquatic zoo animals in the lake. It is not to protect the guests from the animals, but to protect the zoo assets from the humans. The bridge appears to be high enough for the key to squeeze underneath, but it is at an odd angle, especially when you compare it with the pillar of the bridge. The key needs to be perpendicular from the pillar for it to look right. That is much more like it, and all we need to do now is to slightly curve the ends of the keys, then placing cliff rocks at the end. We have the left side of the key curved, and now we just need to add more soil in order to curve the right key inwards towards the lake as well. Just adding the key itself already improves the appearance of the lake, instead of just having cliff rocks all throughout. Moreover, we also have ample space to add decorations with walking paths and trees. You may notice that from time to time, our soil availability depletes because I missed to mention for our new viewers that this is a vanilla gameplay where the only mod we are using is unlimited or an oil. That should do it for our inner lake bank design, and all I need to do now is to add in the walking paths and tree decorations. It is important that we diversify the bank so it does not look too redundant all the way around. And beyond the zoo fence, we will simply zone low density residential, which should help fill in that empty space. I have zoned enough commercial which imbalance the needs of the city. So before the end of this episode, we will analyze the cause of the abandoned buildings. That island in the lake could be slightly larger, so we may add more trees, walking paths, and perhaps some park piers would also be ideal. The island does not have to be completely flat, so I will raise the terrain ever so slightly from under the rocks. Flooding is constant on the island, but that is only when we terraform and add rocks on the banks. But overall, the island is above sea level, so permanent flooding is not a threat. I was considering of using the pavement paths on the island. However, I have already used the zoo path and I want to keep the theme consistent on the island. I have made the island a little larger and added walking paths with trees and rock formations, but I am not terribly convinced on the outcome, but it will have to suffice. I have backtracked a little too much in this episode already, and we need to move forward to the grand stage, which is the tiered zoo. I was also contemplating if I should have fully engulfed the island with keys or remove the keys completely. Nevertheless, we need to move on and fix the slope on the third and final bridge. Just like the road bridge, which is the second bridge that we just improved, I wish to add a key underneath the walking path bridge. There are two things to consider when building any sort of bridge over the new keys with fences. First is the base level or the starting point of your bridge, which should be far enough from the quay. And second, when you raise the elevation of your bridge, it should get over the quay fence. Otherwise, it will seep through from under your bridge and it would seem a little awkward when there's suddenly a barrier, which is the quay fence, that will now be in the middle of your bridge. A little later in the time lapse, I will show you what I mean. Actually, here it is. See that quay fence that seeped right through from under the bridge? Now that is something which is less to be desired. It happens when the quay and the path are on the same terrain level and or the starting point of the path before it is elevated is not far enough from the quay. On the third time around, when I was digging the trench to make the smooth bridge, the water was seeping right through the terrain dam and was filling in the hole, which caused interruption in the construction of the bridge. For the most part, the trench needs to be empty for the slope to be constructed properly, otherwise we would still have a janked bridge. It is also quite possible that the water source of the lake is right under the sea life enclosure, so I had to delete the structure and just bury the water source. And miraculously, water still emerged from the soil, so I had to expeditiously construct the bridge. Now that is definitely much more like it. The captain does enjoy a nice, smooth, sloping bridge. But of course, all of that could have been remedied in a matter of seconds with the align slope from the Move It mod. So in the next season, we'll be lightly modded with Move It, Key Anarchy, and a few more, but with no Traffic Manager mod. Do not get me wrong, I have nothing against Traffic Manager. I am just simply afraid to be dependent on that mod or any other mod. If anything, my videos are to inspire others, especially console players, that you can have a city with great traffic flow without Traffic Manager. And you can also build a beautiful looking city without Move It mod. Nevertheless, yes, I am definitely excited in using mods for the next season. And in order to get that bridge over the quay fence, I slightly lowered the terrain from under the bridge, then reconstructed the quay with fence. And of course, the final task before moving on with decorating the tiered zoo is to jump the power from the mainland to the island by placing down a park pier close enough to the Sea Life Enclosure cruise ship. From this point on, I merely readjusted a few paths and added finer details to the zoo area, which is self-explanatory. Therefore, I will take this opportunity to make a few announcements. I would like to say thank you to everyone that joined me during the unscheduled live stream on planning this zoo design. It was somewhat of a spoiler for this YouTube episode, but the design did turn out differently and much better compared to the live stream. If you would like to watch my live cities gameplay, check out the link below and in the video description. But a fair warning to all that I do not have a fixed streaming schedule, and I occasionally play other simulation management games such as Evo Geniuses 2, Tropico, Jurassic World Evolution, Going Medieval, and so on. So if you are looking for gameplay strategies with the said titles or other, let me know in the comments below. With that said, starting this July, this YouTube channel will start featuring 1 to 2 videos of other simulation games that you play, not heard of, or may be interested in. Not to worry, the main focus of this channel will still be City Skylines. I am merely opening the door for a variety of other games, which would also prevent from burning out in City Skylines. I would like to further extend my utmost gratitude to the viewers during the last live stream and throughout the month who felt compelled to further show their appreciation with generous tips to the captain, which is beyond the support of just watching my videos and streams. Again, I am truly grateful. We also have a Discord channel where one of our newest community members, Potato is Good, share their recreation of Fisher Enclave with currently a population of 17,000 and is also a vanilla build and with a traffic flow of 93%. That is truly amazing. Are there others who are doing a similar recreation? You can share your screenshots of your city, and also in Discord, you could also find help if you find yourself stuck in a build in your other city. If you are looking for ideas or inspiration for your city, you can also find me in other social media platforms where I provide screenshots of current and past cities. And the final announcement is in regards to the Green Suburb mini series, which was an experimental series. And from the feedback that I've been getting, I have figured out a way to filter the playthrough so it's much more like the play speed of Fisher Enclave. There are only 3 episodes left, and within one of the videos, I will provide instructions on how to separately win a Bridges and Piers or the train station's content creator pack. This is the first of many giveaways, which is my way of giving back to the community. The only current stipulation for this giveaway is that these are Steam codes, so you must have a Steam account and at least the base game of City Skylines. Before we take that long awaited cable car tour of the tiered zoo, just a final few notes. I added a line of trees along the zoo fence and plopped down a few gazebos along with tiny rocks with vegetation just to maintain the theme throughout the entire zoo. And also, this is the recycling center with crematorium because from time to time there will be garbage that will be accumulating in these areas. Hence why there's also a road bridge, so we could pick up the garbage from this cable car stop. So this is absolutely necessary. All right, so coming from the monorail station, you go across, and then you either walk. We have a mascot there trying to encourage people to walk down the pathway, but most people would prefer using the cable car, which makes sense. And we're gonna only look at the right side. So on the right, you see some amphibian creatures down below, which is really neat. Of course, you have a better view if you just from the pathway. And here, you could see. Let's see if you could read it. The insect, amphibian, reptile house. And of course, we have kept the ruin right there because I try to keep all of that. And going towards here, let's actually look at it so we could see the tiered area. So you can see this is the first level, second level, third level. And again, looking from the right, I've also added a few more decorating over there with some more buildings, zoo buildings. And here we can see the flamingos, which is really nice. You could see their colors. Some birds at the end, which is less visible. So hence why it is towards the end. And moving to the second level, we see the giraffes. Look at them giraffes. Really nice and orange. I'm tempted to look to the left where all those roaring at, but we will definitely see that on the when we return. And here are the rhinos. You could see them eating, enjoying their meal. This is a really nice view. This is why you should always have your route right next to your featured buildings. Of course, going uphill, I really love these tiny rocks along this vegetation. And here we got people coming down. I think we'll remain here. As you see, I saw the cable car do a complete turn, so I'm not going to move anything. There you can see people coming in, and here's the turn. And now we're gonna look to the right, or maintain looking right, which is now the left. And here first we see the elephants. Look at them. We got the baby elephants, the mama elephant, and the daddy elephants. And unfortunately at the end are the bisons, which we can't see as clearly. And of course here are the lions roaring. This is the one I think they're scaring the giraffes down there. It's not good that they could see what's on top, I guess, of the food chain. And on the left is the apes. I think I see those are gorillas and some monkeys there, and another mascot trying to encourage people to use the paths. Exercise. Oh, there's a few. There's a few people, and there's one person there. And to the right, this is incomplete, but I have plans for that waterfall, so I won't mention anymore after that. And of course, we're just gonna go back to the beginning, and this is the tiered zoo design. Again, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it, especially those that showed up during the stream. You know what? I almost forgot. We need to check out what the issues are with these abandoned buildings. So let's take a closer look at what they are. So these are commercial buildings, and just as what I expected. So since these are historical, well, this should be historical. But yeah, so since these are historical, so commercial buildings occasionally do get abandoned, but they also rebuild. And because they're historical, they do not rebuild, which is a real shame. But that is the only reason why they're abandoned. Yeah, so sometimes delivery doesn't get there in time, but eventually it works themselves out. Let's try to remove all of them, and I'm pretty sure we will no longer have these alerts. And I believe that was the last of them. So yeah, I think the city is doing fine. It was only that tiny hiccup where the abandoned buildings just happens to be the historical buildings. So I am gonna have to make them historical again after they build. But overall, the city does not have any major issues. And again, thank you guys for watching. This is Captain Obvious. You all take care.